Now let's continue with our lesson on Surah Al-Mursalat and learn how to recite and interpret the surah from verse 20 to verse 28. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Did we not create you from a humble fluid, placing it in a secure place until an appointed time? We perfectly ordained its development. How excellent are we in doing so? Who on that day, to the deniers, have we not made the earth on a lodging for the living and the dead, and placed upon it towering, firm mountains, giving you fresh water to drink? Who on that day, to the deniers? Well done. Let's go over the meanings of some key terms mentioned in these honorable verses. The secure place, the mother's womb. An appointed time, the time of the baby's birth. A lodging, the earth that bears both the dead and the living. Now let's start to learn the meaning of these noble verses. The verses emphasize the significance of the power and ability of Allah Almighty in that He made it possible to create humans within the wombs of their mothers. It points out their stay in the womb for a specific time, lasting 9 months, during which the mother bears the pain and difficulties of pregnancy. The human is then born in the best form from the womb by the command of Allah Almighty. Then the verses reveal that Allah Almighty has made the surface of the earth a dwelling place for the living humans. Meanwhile, the deceased humans are buried within the earth. The verses conclude by showing the power of Allah Almighty in creating the towering and stable mountains on the surface of the earth. They also highlight the blessings of Allah Almighty upon humans, such as the fresh and pleasant tasting water that they drink. Now which of you can recite and properly interpret the verses from verse 20 to verse 28 of Surah Al-Mursalat? Well done, my friends. Now let's move forward with our lesson on Surah Al-Mursalat and learn how to recite and interpret the surah from verse 29 to verse 40. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. The disbelievers will be told, proceed into the fire which you used to deny, proceed into the shade of smoke which rises in 3 columns, providing neither coolness nor shelter from the flames. Indeed, it hurls sparks as big as huge castles and as dark as black camels. Who on that day to the deniers? Who on that day to the deniers? Nor will they be permitted to offer excuses. Who on that day to the deniers? They will be told by Allah, this is a day of final decision. We have gathered you along with earlier disbelievers for punishment. So if you have a scheme to save yourselves, then use it against me. Who on that day to the deniers? Well done. Now let's explain these noble verses in an easy way for you. We find that the noble verses reveal the fate of the disbelievers in the hereafter and the various forms of punishment awaiting them in hellfire. Hellfire throws out a big spark of fire, and each spark is like a strong, towering building. The noble verses then speak about the condition of the disbelievers on the day of judgment, stating that they will not be able to speak words that benefit them on that day. They will not be permitted to speak and apologize because there is no excuse for their disbelief, the rejection of Allah's commands, and their denial of the noble messengers, peace be upon them. This is because the day of judgment is a day when Allah Almighty judges between all people. Now which of you can recite and properly interpret the verses from verse 29 to verse 40 of Surah Al-Mursalat? Well done, my friends. Now let's continue and learn how to recite and interpret from verse 41 to the end of the surah. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Indeed, the righteous will be amid cool shade and springs, any fruit they desire. They will be told, eat and drink happily for what you used to do. Surely this is how we reward the good doers. But who on that day to the deniers? Eat and enjoy yourself for a little while, for you are truly wicked. Who on that day to the deniers? When it is said to them, bow down before Allah, they do not bow. Who on that day to the deniers? So what message after this Quran would they believe in? Well done. Now let's learn the meanings of some key terms mentioned in these honorable verses. Amid cool shade and springs means resting under the shadows of paradise, trees, and enjoying the flowing streams of water. Now let's learn what these noble verses mean. The noble verses compare the disbelievers and their condition on the day of judgment, where they will be in the hellfire, to the condition of the righteous believers and their blessings on the day of judgment in heaven, where they will be under the shade of the trees of paradise. They will be among flowing streams of water, with the fruit they crave and desire, all of this without any limit. This is the reward for their excellence in faith and deeds in this world. Then the noble verses admonish the disbelievers for their wrongdoing and worship of entities other than Allah Almighty. The verses conclude with a rebuking question for the disbelievers, where Allah Almighty says, "Which book and speech after this Quran will they believe if they do not believe in the Holy Quran, which is the miracle of Allah Almighty in its clear expressions, fluency, and truthfulness?" Now, which of you can recite and properly interpret the verses from verse 41 to verse 50 of Surah Al-Mursalat? Well done, my friends. In conclusion, we have learned that Allah Almighty does not break His promise, and what He has promised will inevitably happen. The resurrection, reckoning, rewards, and punishments are bound to happen undoubtedly. And we have also learned that we must believe in the Holy Quran, as it is the word of Allah Almighty, and there is nothing more truthful than it. We have come to understand that whoever denies the Holy Quran and what is written in it is among the disbelievers, because there is no speech more credible after the true word of Allah Almighty. We learned about the fate of the disbelievers who deny the Holy Quran and the honorable messengers, peace be upon them, and this destiny is hellfire. And we learned about the fate of the righteous who believed in the words of Allah Almighty and the honorable messengers, peace be upon them. This destiny is paradise. We also realize the justice of Allah Almighty, who does not wrong His servants, so He has determined a fate for the disbelievers and another for the righteous. Each person will be judged based on their deeds and actions in this world. We have come to the end of our lesson today, my friends. Goodbye for now. I will see you in the next lesson.